Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Machan Leira Online Smicha. One of the beautiful minhagim that takes place during a bris milah, which is rich in information and, as I said, in minhagim, is the kisei shel Eliyahu. Simple taich, simple translation, a special chair for Eliyahu. So we'll speak about the source, where this comes from, and what customs do we find connected with it. In Perkei de Rabbi Lezer, Perik Chavtes, it says like this, that in the history back then, obviously the Yidden fulfilled the mitzvah of bris milah, but at a period of time when the Yidden split into two rulers, and Malchus Ephraim tried to stop the bris milah. So Eliyahu stood up and was very zealous to fight for the mitzvah of milah, and he swore that if the Yidden Chas v'Shalom will stop milah, he made the Shemayim swear that there won't be any dew, any rain. So the Marshas, the wicked Izebel, heard this, so she was looking for him to kill him. So Eliyahu Navi stood up and davened to the Eibishter. He says, Eibishter, what's going on? So the Eibishter says to him, are you any greater than your forefathers? Yaakov, when he was in trouble, stood up and ran away. Moshe, when he was in trouble, stood up and ran away. David stood up and ran away. So your Izebel is giving you a hard time. Leave. So Eliyahu left Eretz Yisrael and he was saved. So the pasuk says in Malachim Aleph pasuk Yutes, Vayakam Vayochel Vayesht, and then it says that the Eibishter appears to Eliyahu, and it says Malacha pa Eliyahu. What are you doing here? So Eliyahu says, what do you mean? I was all zealous on your behalf for the mitzvah of milah. So the Eibishter turns to Eliyahu and says, Eliyahu, you're always zealous. You always have kinah. When the Yidden were in Shittim, you fought against the fact that they were doing Gilui Arayos by Pinchas with Pinchas ben Elazar. Over here again, you're acting in a way of kinah. Chayecha, I promise you that there won't be any bris milah because you stood up for my covenant and you're protecting the mitzvah of bris milah. I guarantee you that the Ein Yisrael Oisim bris milah, no Yid will ever make a bris milah until you see the bris, and that's the participation of the guarantee that Eliyahu Navi arrives to every bris because the Eibishter promised him. Now it's brought in a medrash, and the Bnei Yissaschar in Tishrei Maimer Dalet brings this, a step 2 to this. So when the Eibishter said to Eliyahu Navi that he's going to come to every bris, so Eliyahu says, Eibishter, you know that I'm a very zealous person, and if I'm going to arrive in the bris and the parent or the parents are Bali Aveira, I won't be able to tolerate it. I won't be able to be there. So the Eibishter says, don't worry, because you show up, I'm going to forgive the parents and they won't have any Aveiras. So Eliyahu continues and says, and how about the participants? If a bunch of people who come there are not religious and not keeping Torah mitzvahs, I'm not going to be able to talk. So the Eibishter says, I promise you, I'll forgive anybody who comes to a bris milah. I'll forgive them, so you should be able to come there. And Igra de Pirkei brings a remez for this pasuk. Pinchas hu Eliyahu. We know that Pinchas is Eliyahu, and the pasuk says Tachas Hashekina leikav, because he was zealous on behalf of the Eibishter. Vayechaper al bnei Yisrael. So he causes a kapara for all Jews. So Eliyahu Navi comes to every bris, and not only he comes to every bris, because he is who he is, everybody gets forgiven. It's a slichus avonos, and that's why a lot of people are very makpid to try to come to a bris because of Eliyahu being there. Now, in the Machzor of Vitri, it's actually brought that the 40 years the Yidden were in the Midbar, they did the bris milah. And they would hide the milah, the arla, in Afar. but from that but from that time, at a certain time, when Malchus Yeravam came along, the Yeravam was the big Russia. He stopped it. He says no hiding, no burying the Arla. So Eliyahu fought for this and brought it back, and because he fought for this, therefore another act of his zealousness for this mitzvah. So the Eibishter says, "You will come." And this is actually the reason, not only, now that we know that Eliyahu participates in every bris, this is the source for the meaning that they make a kisei shel Eliyahu. They make a special chair for him because he's appearing. Now, there are those, the Sipurnu Parshas Vayera actually says the cheer that we make is not necessarily for Eliyahu Navi, it's even greater, it's for the Shechina. Because we find that by the Eibishter appears to Avram Avinu because that was his day of his bris milah. It was right around, and his family went through a bris milah. So Hashem appears to him. So because the Shechina appears, you make a chair. But most of the poskim, most of the Medrashim lean that it's Eliyahu Hanavi comes, and that's the mucker why we do a kisei shel Eliyahu. Now, it's actually brought a very interesting thing. What happens if, I'm sure there are more than one bris a day in different places, in different parts of the world. How could Eliyahu Hanavi be in so many different places? Obviously, you don't ask a question about Eliyahu Hanavi. But in one of the Svarim of the Rishonim, he says, don't ask this question. I'll bring you a couple of rayas from something positive and something negative. If Chas v'Sholem, the Malach HaMavis, could be in two ends of the world, and Rahman al-San hurt somebody in one side of the world, at the same time, at the other end of the world, hurt somebody else. If it makes sense to the Malach HaMavis, how much more so for Eliyahu Malach HaBris? And then there's a positive response, which is brought in the Medrashim, the Eir HaChama, the sunlight. The sunlight, even though it seems to be it's one ball of sun, but it could shine light to one end of the world and the other end of the world. Eliyahu Hanavi is no less than that. Now, some say Eliyahu in the sense Shluchim, and it's not him himself, but it's Makubal that Eliyahu Hanavi himself comes, and he's the one that participates in every bris, even in all corners of the world. Some of the minhagim connected to this there's a discussion if there are actually two chairs put aside, one for Eliyahu Hanavi and one for the Sadik to sit on. And again, it depends which custom, where you live and what custom you have. But Baruch Tfutzis Yisrael, it seems to be there's one designated kisei for the Eliyahu Hanavi, and the Sadik sits on a second chair. Others actually make it one big chair, big enough for two people to sit, or possibly even a divider, and here's the sandik, here's the moil. Those are different customs. What kind of chair you bring, they make it obviously beautiful. With such a guest like Eliyahu Hanavi, you want to have a beautiful guest. An interesting thing is, if Eliyahu Hanavi comes, you just don't let, a guest like this, you don't just let him go. So that's why we find, which is untypical, usually in davening or statements that we make, we don't refer to the as if we're talking to malachim, but in the text of a bris we say Amoid al Eliyahu Malach HaBris, Amoid al Yamini v'Samcheni, and that's a topic conversation for itself. How is it that we are talking suddenly? We feel like we're so open to talk to malachim, but this is a very special time, a very auspicious and special time.